Hello and welcome to this lecture. Today we are going to discuss another topic which is atherosclerosis, and I'm giving you one presentation, one case. A 21-year-old male college student felt heaviness in his chest after walking a slight incline on campus. He was extremely short of breath and collapsed on a nearby sofa to rest. The vital signs showed elevated blood pressure of 151 systolic and 99 diastolic of Hg, pulse of 97 beats per minute, respiration of 20 per minute, and temperature of 36.6 centigrade, and oxygen saturation of 98%. He had a 3-year of smoking history and a family history of chronic heart disease, including his maternal aunt and great-grandparents. So that's the case study that I'm going to present to discuss atherosclerosis. So the questions arise from this case study is that what would be the probable diagnosis, and define atherosclerosis and discuss the etiology, discuss the prevalence of atherosclerosis, how could you explain atherosclerosis regarding the pathogenesis, describe the morphological characteristics of atherosclerosis. The probable diagnosis for this case study is stable angina, and in stable angina, patient having pain, brief pain, squeezing and pressure, tightness in the chest, and it is often a symptom of coronary heart disease. If a person having stable angina, usually something blocking in the arteries or make it difficult for the blood to flow through them and into the heart. So stable angina will be the probable diagnosis. And when we take a look of atherosclerosis, which is also known as atherosclerotic vascular disease, it is a condition in which the arteries wall thicken are the result of buildup of fatty material such as cholesterol affecting the arterial blood pressure. So we can explain that context that maybe the stable angina could be occurred because of the building of the fatty material that blocking the arteries is because due to high cholesterol level of a patient. And in atherosclerosis, it is a chronic inflammatory response due to accumulation of macrophages, white blood cells, and promoted by low density lipoproteins. So in case of atherosclerosis, it is a chronic inflammatory response, and when there is inflammation, the accumulation of macrophage white blood cells occur with promoted by the presence of LDL, low density lipoproteins. This is a picture of basic structure of atherosclerotic plaques, and we explain in terms of the fibrous cap because they make like a cap-like structure. It's just like a round cap-like structure. So we explain the fibrous cap that contain macrophages, smooth muscles, foam cells, lymphocytes, collagen, proteoglycans, and neovascularization, which mean the formation of new blood vessels. And the central part they explain is the necrotic center, where the presence of cholesterol crystals, foam cells, and calcium are prominent. So that's the structure. The upper part is fibrous cap and the lower part is necrotic center. What would be the cause of atherosclerosis? It could be occurred because of the high blood pressure, high cholesterol level, irritants such as nicotine. If you go back to our case study, we mentioned very prominently that patient is a peak smoker and he has a history of 3-year smoking history. So he's a chronic smoker, and then this is one of the important cause of the disease. Then other diseases such as diabetes is also responsible for atherosclerosis. When we take a look of epidemiology, we found that the estimated 10-year rate is you can see is increasing. And we found that it is more prevail in men as compared to the woman. Women have less chances to have atherosclerosis as compared to the men. Then atherosclerosis, I mentioned, it is less prevalent in Central and South America, Africa, and Asia, more prevalent in United States and Japan. The mortality rate in US is 5 times higher than Japan. That is another important point. According to United States data for the year 2004, 65% of men and 47% of women are expected are having this disease. As already, if we see, take a look of this graph, we found that it is more prevalent in men as compared to the woman. Then we mentioned that the first symptom of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease is a heart attack or sudden cardiac death, which can death within 1 hour on the onset of symptoms. So the sudden death, the one of the reason for sudden death is because of the atherosclerosis. What will be the pathogenesis? The pathogenesis for atherosclerosis is because number 1 is the endothelial injuries that leads to increased permeability, the leukocytes adhesion and thrombosis. So the leukocyte migration or increase of the permeability result in the formation of the clot, or you can say the formation of thrombosis. And then the next, it because of the accumulation of lipoproteins, mainly LDL and cholesterol crystals, as we see in the previous slide. Then platelets adhesion, as I discussed, that clotting factors or platelets adhesion can lead to make the formation of thrombus or clot formation, and that leads to the atherosclerosis. Then monocyte adhesion to the endothelial migration or into the intima. So the monocytes adhesion to the endothelium is one of the factor, and then migration into the intima, and then differentiated into macrophages, foam cells is formation is important thing. Then lipid accumulation within the macrophages responsible to release inflammatory cytokinins. So we already know that atherosclerosis inflammation occur. So how inflammation occur, you can explain in terms of the adhesion of the monocytes to endothelial cells. After binding with endothelial cells, migration of the cells into intima, and then it differentiate into macrophage and foam cells. And after that, the lipid accumulate within the macrophage, so lipid will come in action, and then they adhere to the macrophages, and then after adhesion of the lipid with the macrophages, the inflammatory cytokinins will be released, and then it promote the inflammation. So we mentioned the smooth muscle cell recruitment occur because of the activated platelets, macrophages, and the vascular wall, and then smooth muscle cell will proliferate, and the production of extracellular matrix will be occur. So that's the pathogenesis of atherosclerosis. If we take a look of the morphology, we classify them into 3 parts. One is fatty streak, second one is gelatinous lesion, and third one is atheromatous plaque formation. If we take a look of this structure, and this picture is showing you the formation or early formation of the lesions, and the main thing is that the structure consists of this part is known as intima, middle part is media, and the outer part is adventitia. And what happened there, the formation of the foam cells occur, you can see just before the intima part in that section, and that formation of foam cells along with the presence of cholesterol can result in narrowing of the lumen, and along with, if the platelets adhere, it can lead to the formation of the thrombus. And then you can see that the proliferation of the smooth muscles also occur because of the leakage. So the migration of the smooth muscles along with the formation of foam cells, then the presence of the macrophages, and then the presence of cholesterol crystals, they combine together to form the atheromatous plaque. This is the fully developed atheromatous plaque. Again, now this is contain foam cells plus lipid pools and necrosis occur, and they make the fibrous cap, the cap-like structure, just like the round structure. It's just like a head on your head. And then this is the core section where we found cholesterol cleft as well. So initial stage we don't have the cholesterol crystals, but in the later stage they are more profound, and then later stage necrosis will be occur, and they make a more round cap-like structure, which is known as fibrous cap. And then you can see that the lumen become more narrowed, and then it can lead to obstruction and can lead to the sudden cardiac death. This is the complicated plaque. Now become more the last stage, which in the end they will be the formation, calcium formation, or they may be calcification process, where there will be adhesion of the calcium inside that matrix, and that is a complicated plaque. Again, this is a picture to explain that what are the content in fully developed atheroma, where we have the fully atheroma is present. So number one is the formation of the foam cells, disturbed elastic lamina. We have proliferated smooth muscles, as we discussed before, the presence of extracellular matrix and lymphocytes. And I have highlighted the in dark black box that what are the main key appearance, or the histological appearance, or the morphological appearance in fully developed atheroma. And again, if this atheromatous plaque deposit in aorta, then it, especially beneath the intima, which I discussed, that the inner section of the artery, then what happened that it, sometime what happened that the atherosclerotic plaque that contained cholesterol, again, the different materials, like I already discussed, the presence of platelets, and then the formation of the plaque, they can cause a degeneration effect in the media. And what are the degeneration that will be happen? There will be the loss of elasticity, the weakening, and the aortic dilation happen. And if obviously the atherosclerotic plaque deposit more and more beneath the intima, that dilation then prolong in the aorta, and if it prolong, it dilate the section of the aorta, then it can lead to aortic aneurysm. Whereas the dilatic aortic wall become lined with the thrombi, and that actually the formation of that plaque become a thrombi, and that thrombi, if can lead to embolism, it means that that plaque can detach from the aorta and then can go to the pulmonary vessels, where it can cause embolism, or we can say that pulmonary embolism, which leads to ischemia in the distal branches and the distal bronchioles. So thank you so much for today's lecture. Hope to see you again in more upcoming lectures.